to another episode from Fear to Courage. Today, I have the honor to interview a somewhat crazy entrepreneur, but her craziness is what leads her to success. Her creativity, courage, and out-of-the-box thinking to help others start up businesses is what leads her to her place today. Sydney, welcome to the show.
Thank you, William. I'm so happy to be here.
So Sydney, I gave you an introduction to give my audience, what we can expect from this interview. So fill us in on your background. I mean, I know that you sent me a bio about it, but tell us a little bit about your journey. It's like, wow, how did you go this route? How did you find that courage to just go all in? Whatever happens.
Well, I feel like courage is something that, to me, it builds over time. So you have these small accomplishments that give you the confidence to do bigger things. And so, so ever since I was little, I would always explain to people that my brothers and I have two younger brothers, are kind of like the characters of the Wizard of Oz. So one of them, the investment banker, got the brain. He's the scarecrow. The other one, he's the Tin Man, so he becomes a doctor, and he gets the heart, and I get the lion's courage. So I'm very happy for that. And so I graduated from McGill with a Bachelor's of Commerce. Then I moved on another one-way ticket, actually. I keep liking to buy one-way tickets just to see what would happen. So I moved all the way to Paris, and that's where I do my MBA. And that was my first time in Europe, actually, and I met friends from all over the world. And that, I find, is something that really does help your sense of awareness, your sense of the world, and it builds up your experiences for life in general, business and personal. And then the only job that I was able to get was in the technology industry, and that was because I graduated at a very tough time in terms of the economy. There were very few marketing jobs, so if you wanted a marketing job, you had to be marketing and something else. So for me, it was automation, CRM, Salesforce, those kinds of things. And I was really interested in working with startups. So in my free time, I went to a lot of startup events in Montreal. And then I had a friend from San Francisco who said if I was very serious about learning about tech and startup, then I gotta go to San Francisco. So I did. I bought a one-way ticket and I moved in with him. I presume that was an invite. And so I stayed there until I basically had no more visa. So I didn't have an actual visa. I was there on basically like a traveler's visa that you can get in Canada, which was almost invisible. And then, and I didn't have a job. I was trying to get a job there, and I didn't have an apartment, which was impossible to get in Silicon Valley. And so I eventually, I found out later, there were actually a few of my friends who did the same thing around the same time, except they lived, underneath the Golden Gate Bridge because they didn't have a really good friend like mine. And we really wanted it that badly to be industry leaders, that badly to dive into the unknown and kind of see what would happen. And they all come out with really kind of crazy stories too. So yes, for me, I knew that my time was limited if I didn't have a visa there. So I got every opportunity to talk to every single Uber driver, find out everything I can, talk to every single house cleaner who was on TaskRabbit, and talk to every single dog walker who was on Wag. Basically, every app was producing jobs, right? And the interesting thing was, all of these people had goals. And I don't just mean like, I'm paying off, my student loans, which is a great goal. I mean, like, they never told you that they did all of these side jobs for money. They told you what their goal was and how they were just fearless in terms of achieving those goals through any means possible. And I was just in so much awe and admiration to be in such an assertive startup culture. And that's what inspired me to build a company to serve startups all around the world.
Wow, incredible. So how do you help the startups? Because I would think that startup is the most difficult, like the startup entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They have the passion, they have the energy, they have a lot of them, they even have the knowledge. but what happens? The one big problem that is that they typically fail, right? 90% you mentioned fail within the first year. That's scary.
That is scary. Exactly. That's very scary. That's exactly why I wanted that challenge. I'd be the person who would apply for jobs where I only qualify for maybe like 40, 50, 60%. And I'm like, I can do this. So definitely somebody who really wants a big challenge. So what I did was when I moved back to Canada, I traveled across my country with just a shoestring budget. Canada is enormous for those of you who've never been. William, you should come. It's big and it's very interesting. And so I traveled across the country with just a shoestring budget to talk to investors, startups, incubators, everyone in this industry to understand what was their biggest pain and what was their biggest need and things like that. So they didn't know how to get to the next level. You're absolutely right. That's a huge need. The other trouble that they said was we always have trouble with funding. And when it came to the other side of the coin, I was asking investors, well, incubators and accelerators and co-working spaces in every major city in the world are growing by about 56% per year. How is it that the percentage of invested startups are not growing by even close to the same rate or growing at all? And so what they explained was that they were being over-solicited by startups that were unprepared. Each person at every investment firm, at every level, get over 200 applications per year that they can't possibly go through. So that's kind of why, I say, okay, well, what is preparedness and how do you measure it? And that's where we build analytics around it, that's where we build smart data around it, and that's where we help startups put their best foot forward. Because we want to help you prove that you are definitely worth the shot, that you're going to stand up from the pile, and that you are where you say you're at. And this is all the work that you've done. So kind of getting their foot in the door and getting their best chances for investment is how we help the people that are getting it for the very first time. All of our clients are first-time entrepreneurs.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, because I'm thinking that the funding is the hardest part. Tell us more about how you can position yourself to get funding. What are some things that investors look for? Because there's always going to be a risk, right? Mm-hmm. Right, from the investor's point of view.
Yeah.
So, what are some things that let's say the people listening to this, they have that dream, they want to get that dream, but then they have no money. They couldn't start.
So our product is built around what the investor's expectations are, and so if you don't have revenue, they look for traction. So traction is built out of 4 basic analytics, which are actually our main gauges on our dashboard. So the first one is product market fit. How does your target market resonate with the need and the benefit of your solution? So is there actually a need? And this is a very, very big question for people. Are you really solving a problem? And is it for the right people? And how are you doing that? So having this kind of evidence, this kind of data, this kind of proof, super important. The second one, really, really important, is financial runway. So QuickBooks actually did a study saying that over 50% of startups are financially illiterate, which sounds terrifying when you're starting a company and you have other people's like salaries on the line and everything, right? And so they watch carefully, and this is also how we track it. How you spend your money is how you're going to spend their money. How is your burn rate? What do you use it for? And how are you spending these kinds of things? And of course, over time, you're going to make mistakes. That's inevitable. But it's kind of how quickly you get back up. That is the key part. And all of this will show in the different kinds of data that we are tracking for you. The next one is conversion. So why investors want conversion is they want to know if you don't have the cost of customer acquisition, which is the key metric for conversion, they want to know what kind of things you are doing for conversion. Do you have letters of intent? How strong are they? Do you have signups? Do you have pre-orders? Those kinds of things. So everything from a Kickstarter to, a very standard formalized letter of intent, these all count. And they're all worth kind of different points. Just in the way that if people were to show it to you, they're worth something different, right? Because it's a different level of effort and a different level of customer commitment. And then the next one is engagement. So So engagement is retention plus usage. So are people coming back because they love you so much, or are they just signing up once because it's your mom and you kind of told them to? So those are not the same people, you know? And how are they using it? Are they really benefiting from it, or really did they just sign up once? So these are all the kinds of things that you got to track. And are you building out things that people really need in terms of, for example, if you were building out different parts of a tech application or a mobile software, are you building out features that people are looking for? Are you building out things that they're never going to use? These are all being tracked. And so they are showing investors, this is how much work I've done, this is how prepared I am, and this is why you want to be in on me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I was just, I think this one might not be the direct relationship.
Yeah.
But I think has some definitely related to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So one area that I look at in my business is social media, because everybody talks about it.
Yeah.
And then I've been measuring it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed that I'm not getting much traction on other platforms, like the LinkedIn, the Pinterest, all that stuff, Instagram, Facebook. I'm doing pretty well. Twitter is like non-existent basically. I mean, 200 followers or no engagement doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So it's like instead of believing the myth that I need to be everywhere all the time, well, why not just spend my time on something that will get me those high engagement?
Exactly.
And why I started doing based on that is that I mean I'm gonna keep it running because I already have something running. But I'm not going to count on that to get my next speaking opportunities or next clients.
Yeah.
Because it's not realistic.
Exactly.
So instead, I build one-on-one relationships. I talk to people. I ask them how they're doing, and just genuinely care about what they need, what their needs are. So that's works so much better.
Yeah. No, and I remember when you reached out to me and how excited I was to meet you, because we watched you when we were little. And then how genuine you are, because it's true that the invaluable impression that you kind of put on people when you talk to them as people carries out, and it would always come back to you, and no matter how global your business is, things do come back to you.
Yeah, and the interesting thing I learned is that it's not about because I mean having a brand obviously helped for me, but that's not the reason I get to sustain my fame or notoriety. The reason is because I have to demonstrate that I'm a giving person.
Yeah.
I live a bigger mission than myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And the From Fear to Courage is a great mission. It's a great mission. I really believe it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I love what you do. So tell us some interesting cases or people that you work with recently.
Interesting cases or people. So without giving away too much information, one of the most interesting startups who actually just signed on with us is the winner of Startup Weekend. So it's a very big competition. He's a first-time startup, very young, lots of energy, and so excited to be working with him. His idea is a combination of Wave and Groupon and community-based. So it's really great to kind of see where that's going to evolve, and that was the concept that won Startup Weekend. And so I think that, like you said, it doesn't just take one hit of an achievement or fame or anything like that, but it does take ongoing work and consistency. And I definitely think that he's one to watch. So I'm very excited about where that goes, and we might also be doing an interview or a podcast or a Medium blog about him. So we have a YouTube channel, Medium blogs, and different things that we provide tips for other entrepreneurs. And I think that providing his insights on how he won Startup Weekend and transitioning into building it from one competition to a real business is something that is very, very interesting.
Wow, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
For I try to understand the way you help the startups. So is it based on like people applying to you? You look at the four things that you mentioned, and then you decide who to invest, or how does it work?
Yeah, so they usually set up a demo meeting. So demo meetings are free with me. We usually do them on Skype or some sort of conferencing platform over the internet. And that way we can screen share and I can actually show them what the product looks like and explain what each of the things are. They tell me about their investment goals and what their goals are for the next 3 months, 6 months, etc. So we know how long we might be working together. Some would like to only work towards their first funding goal. Some would work towards both of their funding goals. So all the way from seed and Series A, that's great too. And so they would also provide sometimes, a pitch deck or a plan or things like that they want us to review before we submit it over, and that's fine. And so then when they sign on for, let's say, 3 month or 6 months of subscription, we meet with them every month for a short period of time where we just discuss their metrics and see if they're hitting their goals or not. So we are always prepared and not surprised when they're going to be submitting for funding. In the long run, this process might change, but right now, one of my goals is really to make it as personable as possible. The founder of Dropbox personally spent time with the first 5,000 users as he was building out the first cloud system in the world.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so I think that any industry disruptor like we are should be spending as much time with their customers as possible, and if it means to provide them extra value, then that's a win-win.
That's a great point. Because I don't when I work with my they are new clients because I haven't been doing coaching that long.
Yeah.
But I was by the way, yeah. I mean, I just give them as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at that person as a transaction. It's not a transaction. I want to get that person all the way across that big gap.
Yeah.
The bridge. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and their gap usually is a lot of holding back from any type of personal fear, which is the topic of this conversation, and especially if they're first-time entrepreneurs, because you see that when you talk to second-time entrepreneurs, their fear level is much smaller because they kind of done all of it, whether or not that company got acquired or dissolved or whatever happened to the first company. The seasoned ones will definitely have a different gap, and their gap has almost nothing to do with fear by that point.
Yes. So for personally for you, how long you been doing this?
Since 2016. So we just moved really, really fast. In 2017, I basically went across the country on, like I said, a shoestring budget to do a lot of the pilot projects, work with incubators, and push through the first investments, which were actually from the incubator.
Oh.
Hmm.
What are your challenges now, and moving forward? What do you feel that is your biggest fear that you have to deal with besides that shoestring budget traveling?
Yeah.
Getting this up and running. Yeah.
Well, I think that when you are bootstrapping, you would always be having that fear of finances in the back of your mind, because if you're not, then you're probably moving too slowly. And I think that I have a high need for achievement, so then if I don't achieve my monthly goals or weekly goals or things like that, I do have a big fear of failure. That is my biggest fear. And it would be, for example, even if a client that was supposed to close today, for example, postpone until Monday, which doesn't seem like a big deal, that is still like, I gotta swallow that fear of failure tonight. Which is true, this actually happened this afternoon.
Oh.
And I think that some people are just born that way too, when you don't think that you've done enough, or you think that you've let down your team, or you think that you haven't sold enough. I know that when we reach to a certain level of revenue, my goal is to hire somebody very specific back to the company. And every time, if, for example, a client delays or we don't sell enough, or things like that, my fear of failure is probably my biggest fear.
That's definitely true. So like, what do you tell yourself? I mean, do you just use information? Do you talk to your network? How do you deal with that?
So I do talk to my network. I have an online network in various Facebook groups, social media groups, things like that. Most of my friends now are also startups, so that does help. I feel like when you become a startup, you just make more friends in it. They just show up in your life. I don't know where. They're just popping up everywhere. And I really have maybe 4 friends that have regular jobs, and they love their jobs, which is good. But they don't understand those kinds of fears, so it's very difficult to talk to them about it because they have a different set of environment and a different set of stimulants in their day to day. And
absolutely.
they're like, oh, my boss gave me a bad review. I'm like, yeah, I don't even remember what that's like, but yeah. And I also have a mentor that I talk to. I do feel like one of the things that helps me the most, which sounds so strange, it sounds really strange, is I have sticky notes on your computer. So you take up your sticky notes and you write down the things that you actually did. And this is for people who have that need for achievement. You write down things that you did that day, you accomplished that day, and then you write down things that in the past 24 hours or so that you were grateful for. So the things that I always tended to be grateful for were not things about myself, but were things that I wanted to thank other people for. So those 2 things are personal to me, and I do them every day. And I find that really does help with that fear a lot, because like I said, I believe that building up your confidence to face your fears comes from small steps at a time.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. So yeah, it's great that you're helping more people to achieve their dreams. So if you were to turn back the time and do this all over again, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself to start earlier. I started when I finished my contract at my last position, which was fine, but I would have wanted to start in university. I would have wanted to start right when I finished university or things like that, because there would be more support programs, there would be more available grants, there would be more, accelerators that I can be part of, just different things, different opportunities. As you wait longer and longer and longer to achieve your dreams, you would start to see that those who are identified as less risky, so they're a certain age, they're a certain whatever, they don't have the same opportunities, because these kinds of government grants and things like that tend to be open for young people, they tend to be open for new immigrants, they tend to be open for just different kinds of groups that are higher at risk, right? So as I see, the longer you wait, the more that the doors close. So if you have a big fear of missing out, that is a good fear to have. You should definitely jump on it. I would say that I wish I started earlier.
That's wonderful. So if people want to learn more about what you do, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So the best way for them to reach out is through our Contact Us form on www.venturx.ca. That's VenturX.ca. And we will get back to you within the next 24, 48 hours usually.
Fantastic. I'll make sure I provide that in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, Sydney, thank you so much.
Thank you, William.
For sharing your wonderful experience with us.
This has been such a happy experience for me. You have no idea.